Do you know of the nation's true history?
I don't claim to know all of it, but I've come to know a lot of it.
Would you care to tell me about the nation? An interesting history of an ambitious nation.
Yes, and Queen Abigail II is as ambitious and ruthless as they come. House Thrun makes sure there is order in the nation, but it comes at a high price.
So tell me again, why Gaspedar's signet could rally the enemies of House Thrun?
Because it's a symbol of what many see as the last true ruler of Cheliax. It could be seen as the true crown, I suppose. Sometimes all people need is a symbol and a glimmer of hope to rise up against tyranny.
True. How does a place ruled by devil worshippers function? I suspect there's a strict hierarchy.
There is, and everyone in Hellish society have their place, and few dare question it. See, moving up the social ladder is hard and very uncommon. Moving down is all too easy and not so uncommon. More than a few nobles that have caught the ire of House Thrun have been demoted to peasants, or worse.
Demoted? Absurd. What about halflings? Is it true what I hear?
Yes, of course. Halflings. They are treated with scorn and contempt by most in Cheliax, and nearly every slip I've met in the hellbound nation was a slave.
A slip?
Slip is a term halflings are known by in Cheliax.
And halflings are slaves in Cheliax?
Usually, and visiting halflings are at great risk of becoming one. But slavery in Cheliax is comprised of a vast network that consists of much more than halflings. Debtors, criminals, unfortunates, and even disposed nobles are among the slaves of Cheliax. There is a complex set of laws that classifies the slaves based on their sentence and what their owners are permitted to do with them. Term slaves, for example, or those that are enslaved as ordered by the law for a certain time period, are not to be executed, dismembered, or disfigured. When their sentence is done, they may be bought for another term with their current master, or they may go to a new owner. If no one wants them, they can return to the very bottom of society as free individuals. Life slaves, on the other hand, are not so fortunate and are at the mercy of their owner for the rest of their lives.
Be quiet.
Above the slaves are the serfs, peasants who are bound to live and work on their lord's land. Unlike slaves, serfs are not the personal property of their lords, but they are certainly not free either. They can't leave the land or change their occupation without their lord's permission. They are required to provide labor services, a portion of their agricultural produce, and of course, pay a tax in order to use the land for their own subsistence. They are uneducated, poor, and most of them are born, live, and die on the same noble's estate. Above the serfs are laborers of all kind. Whether they be carters, scribes, or servants of the wealthy, they are usually uneducated and spend their days working hard to make a living. They reside in the slums and poorer neighborhoods of the cities, or as farmers or hunters in the hinterlands. And though they are free to go where they please and seek their fortunes and new employers, they rarely advance in society. Mercenaries and enlisted soldiers enjoy the same social status as laborers. When they aren't working to put food on the table, these lower classes fill up the taverns, vice dens, and the blood sport arenas for recreation. Above the laborers are the artisans and craftsmen that create the goods that keep the economy of the nation flowing. They are usually educated in their field of work and know the tricks of their trade. Like the laborers, they are free to move as they will, but unless their craft is an itinerant one, the different craftsmen guilds rarely allow it. Mortgages and loans in their businesses and homes keeps the craftsmen nailed down by ownership. In Cheliax, an unpaid debt can be a fast route to slavery or a debtor's prison. The social betters of the craftsmen are the merchants, guildsmen, and the advocates. They are the first on the societal ladder that the wealthy and the nobles truly have an interest in. They provide structure and community, and their influence may be such as to actually have a small say in what direction the nation is moving. Above them are the wealthy, those that have gained financial stability and are now capable of speculating, investing, and being involved in politics and other risky ventures. They've got influence, and to most of them, all that matters is furthering their own position, status, and power within the empire. Their ambition often leads them to hire mercenaries and adventurers to solve all kinds of tasks, some more questionable than others.
I shall pay you well.
Then there is the old nobility, those from before the ascension of House Thrune. They still have vast holdings and loyalty from members of the public. The families of the old nobility who have yet to prove themselves to the new queen tend to congregate in West Crown. They are good at playing the political game and avoiding any open conflict with the thrice-damned house and their allies. I think that if the nobles in West Crown were to unite, they could become a formidable force against House Thrune. However, the prospect of gaining the Queen's favor by exposing nobles harboring rebellious sentiments have, so far, prevailed.
There is a traitor in West Crown.
Then there is the new nobility, which has risen after the Civil War and with fortunes that are closely tied to House Thrune. The first of these were those that aided House Thrune with its ascension, and those that came after are families that in one way or another have earned their nobility through service to the crown.
What kind of service?
Anything from brilliant politicking to espionage, assassination, or other feats of strength that House Thrune appreciates. They gain titles and grants of land, often taken from the old nobility or noble families that have earned the ire of House Thrune. They then become a part of the ruthless game in the courts of Egorian and Hell.
Hell? Do the nobles in Cheliax have anything to say in the matters of Hell?
Well, not in any way to influence the will of Hell, of course. But it is said that some of the new nobility holds estates in Hell and infernal titles to match.
How unnerving. Is it true that devils roam everywhere in the infernal empire?
The influence of Hell goes deep, but Chelaxians living in the countryside or in smaller towns and villages may go their whole life without ever seeing a devil. In the greater cities, though, you're bound to catch a glimpse of a devil walking the streets with a noble, at least if you stay long enough. I've seen it myself. Some say that there are many devils that walk among the common folk, though they have taken on the shape of a human, elf, or dwarf. I can't tell you if this is true, but it wouldn't surprise me, as many members of the nobility make pacts with devils for power. The ruling nobility in Cheliax is divided into 3 categories, with each containing 3 subcategories, all in all 9.
Like the layers of Hell. What are their titles?
The Majestrix and her immediate family are above this hierarchy, but at its top are the Archdukes, the Dukes and the Paradukes, followed by the Archcounts, Counts and Paracounts. Lastly, you have the Archbarons, Barons, and Demi-Barons. There can be no more than 6 Archdukes, 1 for each Archduchy that Cheliax is divided into.
And who are the 6 Archdukes at the moment?
Well, there are only 4 at the moment. See, the title of Archduke is a hereditary one, and only 3 of the ruling families under the former regime kept their power after the throne ascendancy. House Carthaginian still rules Long March from Corentin, while House Nericopolis still rules Menedor from Cantaria. House Henderthane has kept their status as well, and continues to rule Sirmium from Ostenso. The Archduchy of Hellcoast used to be ruled by House Davian, but their fate was of course sealed at the Battle of 100 Kings. No one has gained the title of Archduke in the duchy since, but House Thrune has appointed Paraduke Marcellus Thurivan to oversee the county. The northern region of Ravenel hasn't had an Archduke for half a century either. The former rulers of Ravenel was House Sarini, but they were stripped of their power and are now known as the Fools of Thrune, as they are sent off to other courts as representatives of their lieges in a mockery of their former station. Lastly, you have the Heartlands. When Abigail I took the throne, she also took control of the Heartlands from its original rulers. Whatever house that was, House Thrune has made sure that there are no records of them left, and they are not mentioned in any known historical document. They have successfully been erased from history.
Disturbing. And the Church of the Dark Prince? Where is its place in the hierarchy?
Like the Majestrix and her immediate family, the Church of Asmodeus and its functionaries are outside of the hierarchy. Its clergy have various positions within the governmental bureaucracy, where they help control the courts and create laws that are brought before the Queen for approval. One such branch of the Church is the Inquisitors of Cheliax.
The Inquisitors?
Yes. When in public, they are recognizable by their black robes and iron masks. They are the secret police of the nation and are charged with creating and developing informants, rewarding and encouraging their vast network of spies with gold, prestige and influence. You can imagine the environment this creates, one where neighbors keep an eye on each other, looking for suspicious behavior. An environment where the constant fear of stepping out of line is present. The Inquisitors work with the blessings of the nobles and the authority of the Church. They are best avoided at all costs.
And how does one do that?
By proclaiming loyalty to Cheliax publicly and often. No one wants to seem less patriotic than their fellows, for that might bring about the curiosity of the Inquisitors. The influence of the Asmodean Church is so great that all Chelish citizens pay lip service to the Dark Prince, even if they don't truly mean it, and nearly every home contains at least one shrine to Asmodeus or a red pentagram. But at the same time, there is a strong focus on the separation of church and state.
Really? I would have thought the Church of Asmodeus had full control in Cheliax.
Well, it does, to an extent, and then again, it doesn't. 2 things are worth noting when it comes to the worship of Asmodeus and the power of the Church. Firstly, there are plenty of temples to other gods in Cheliax.
Really? Secret ones, I take it?
No, the worship of other gods is permitted, a generous allowance by the Prince of Darkness. But of course, the rules for worship set forth by the Church of Asmodeus and House Thrune must be followed. You may find temples to Pharasma, Iomedae, Shalin, Abadar, and others within the borders of Cheliax. They pale in comparison to the great cathedrals of Asmodeus, of course, but they are not forbidden.
Curious.
Secondly, there is a not-so-known power struggle between the Church and House Thrune. It's subtle, but it's certainly there. Neither the Church nor House Thrune are powerful enough to take full control of the nation. They need each other, and I can't imagine what an open conflict between the two would look like, seeing as they both owe their allegiance to the Prince of Darkness. But in the end, despite their power struggle, the true ruler of Cheliax is Queen Abigail II and the thrice-damned House Thrune. The queen is said to be immature, spoiled and demanding, but she is clearly also the sharpest, ruthless, and most vicious political power Cheliax has seen in decades. She rules with unchecked authority, and her word is law. She is known to change her mind, though, and erase all traces of former decrees if she feels like it, which of course makes those around her court extra alert, for they are all but a whim away from potential treason. The queen has two fiendish advisors close to her. The first is the powerful pit fiend general Gorthalek. He also served her grandmother, Abigail I. It is said that he usually takes the guise of a human when there are emissaries or guests at the royal court. But even so, those who have seen him tell of an overwhelming and unmistakable aura of evil. The other fiend close to Abigail II is the Contessa Lireltha, an Arrhenius who has been appointed the task of educating the young queen, some say by Asmodeus himself.
Contessa. Where does that fit within the hierarchy of Cheliax?
It doesn't, which leads many to believe it is an infernal title. Another force in Cheliax is of course the various orders of Hell Knights within the nation, the first of which was commissioned by King Gaspadar in 4576. Theirs is the same task there as anywhere else. They uphold law and order in their own merciless way, guided by the strict philosophies of the measure and chain. While not a part of House Thrune's forces, the ruling house has historically found their services useful and often worked closely with several Hell Knight orders.
House Thrune and Hell Knights working together seems as a given, but why would any nation ally with Cheliax? Everyone knows they are ruled by devil worshippers and that they promote slavery.
Well, other nations do that as well. Katapesh shares Cheliax's enthusiasm for slavery, and their infamous slave galleys can sometimes be seen entering the port of Corentin, no doubt buying or selling at its slave trade.
Disgusting.
Edal also shares a strong connection to Cheliax, perhaps strongest of all its allies. As said, the Umbral Court secretly supported House Thrune during the Civil War, and the two nations have been strong allies ever since. Edal sends its Shadowcasters and Masters of Pain to aid House Thrune in matters of shadow magic and torture. While Isker supposedly is a sovereign state, it's no secret that the steward, Hedwyn VI, takes his orders from House Thrune, and he is often seen at the courts of Vigorian.
What of Multhune? How do they see their old rulers?
Cheliax now is very different from when Multhune was a part of it, and Multhune has become a much more competent force to deal with. They recognize the military might of Cheliax, and even though the General Lords dislike House Thrune and its infernal connection, they can't help but admire its strength. Rahadum, on the other hand, does not share Multhune's admiration in any way. They would like Kari to become theirs again and take away Cheliax's control of the Hesperith Strait. The fact that they have to pass through Chelish patrols whenever transporting goods from the inner sea to Port Godless is not something they are pleased with, and Cheliax's devotion to Asmodeus only adds to the Rahadumi's dislike of the nation. And then there is Andoran, of course.
Cheliax's most hated neighbor, I take it?
Without a doubt. Your way of government, culture, and your desire to abolish slavery does not go well with the ways of Cheliax. The operations of the Eagle Knights is a nuisance that House Thrune would like to be rid of. Their meddling in Cheliax affairs in foreign ports and other places in the inner sea are obvious. but still not as obvious as to start an open war.
I should hope not. When it comes to martial might, Cheliax might just be our superior.
Yes, but that doesn't stop Andoran from trying to influence the Infernal Empire's neighbors or secretly support rebellious forces within Cheliax.
Forces within Cheliax. You speak of the famed Bellflower Network, don't you?
Yes, they are not officially sponsored by Andoran, but it's an ill-kept secret. And of course, this is where hundreds of slips escapes to every year.
Slips. The life of my kind truly seems to be miserable in Cheliax.
It is as it seems. If you're a halfling, or like me in Cheliax, you'll have a hard time just for being born the way you have.
Tieflings suffer as well.
Not to the extent that a slip does, but we're seen as something worse than rabble. A sign of a lack of control, the symbol of a weak mortal. Most tieflings in Cheliax are exotic slaves, and if not, they've usually chosen a way of crime, since that's one of their only options. But despite what many outsiders think, Cheliax is a functioning society, and if you keep your head down and you don't step out of line, you can have a somewhat peaceful and normal existence. There is also a strong and very effective element of propaganda in the nation. You would be surprised by the amount of Chelaxians that are highly and loudly patriotic, from the nobles and all the way down the hierarchy. There are even slaves who believe that the way things are in Cheliax is for the best, and that there is no greater nation. The people find the way to cope with the rules of the land. The Cellist sense of pride exhibits itself in a strong appreciation of the arts. Chelaxians view indulging in the arts as a way to immerse themselves in luxury and to find an escape from the challenges of their lives. They experience life indirectly by appreciating and enjoying various art forms. No single art form has captivated the Chelish people more than opera, and no settlement is considered significant on the national scene unless it boasts at least one opera house.
Ah, yes, those I've heard of. If what I've heard is true, one could almost be tempted to visit the Hellish nation for that experience alone. Almost. Is it true their operas are in Aslanti?
Well, many classic pieces date back millennia and have historically been performed in Aslanti, though since the throne ascendancy, they have been translated into another language.
Dare I ask of which language you speak?
I think you'll find it an easy guess.
Infernal.
Exactly. Public operas are performed in the common tongue, but House Throne and members of the aristocracy that hope to gain or maintain the Queen's favor enjoy them in the language of hell.
I must say, it all seems very sinister. Excuse me.
Your Grace.
Menelo, send word to the buyer that the item has arrived and have the servants prepare some food for our guest.
Yes, Your Grace.
And prepare one of the guest rooms as well. Dradon shall be spending the night.
A tiefling sleeping here?
You've got a problem with that pureblood?
Menelo, mind your manners or find yourself expelled from this house. Is that understood?
Your Grace, I apologize. Please forgive me.
Good. Now do as you're told.
Yes, Your Grace.
I apologize, Dradon. I hope you're not too offended.
It takes a lot more to offend me.
I suppose. How did you get a hold of it? Gaspadar's signet. I know I asked you to tell me about the nation, but 14 months of searching for this item must hold quite the tale.
My knowledge of Cheliax and my travels are not so easily separated. To speak of one, I must speak of the other.
Marvelous. I trust you found the potions I gave you useful.
2 healing potions and a potion of invisibility was hardly enough to get me through this quest, but they were useful at crucial moments.
Good.
My journey began in a most peculiar place called Brastelwerk.
Greetings. Thank you for watching the Tower of Tomes. If you like the content, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. Also, please have a look at the Tower of Tomes Patreon page. There will be a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.